I know that you are on the ladder. I know that you are talented and brilliant and bright. And the truth is that every rung upon which you ascend will be all that much better because you have gotten there. But we need you to be able to actually get there, which means we need you to be alive long enough. We need you to not have to only worry about surviving. We need you to be able to thrive in spaces. If there's someone in your listening audience I want to make certain that we get to and that we get a chance to save. I want to make certain that there's some sister who understands that it no longer should cost her everything that she has. And for so often, for so long, we have believed the hype that it actually does, that is what it takes for success. And then we get to the pinnacle of success and realize it's very lonely. It can be incredibly isolating, right? It doesn't feel like what it looked like on the vision board.
Welcome to the Next Best Thing podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Cline-Thomas. Now, I'm here to help you live life on your terms so you don't have to live the life that you think you have to settle for. Now, this episode is going to be a little bit different. Now, over here, we often talk about how to improve your life incrementally, but really speaking about it in an individual sense, like how to improve your singular life, which would, by association, improve your family's life, right? But today, I really want to broaden that out because I do truly believe that the lives that are best lived, the lives that have the most impact are the ones that are in service of other people. I truly believe that. Still, I know assuming that role is extraordinarily exhausting, right? Like, I understand that you can show up in your workplace, let's say, with your intersectional identity, identities that may have been systemically marginalized. And you feel like, man, I did not sign up to be everybody's MLK. I don't want to be kind of the moral barometer of how to do things here. And quite frankly, I'm not even getting paid to do that. I just want to come in and do the work and go home. I get it. I truly get it. Your presence there, though, absolutely matters. And for others who have taken on the mantle of advocacy and are actively, like, that is a part of their mission that they're pursuing on a daily basis, you all are in the trenches. God bless you, right? It can get weary. There is a lot of burnout amongst activists, right? And this episode is a reminder about how important your work is, but also a reminder about how important it is to take care of yourself. Our guest today, y'all, you are in for a treat. Her name is Michellene Davis. It's really hard to summarize Michelene's impact on the world, so I'm going to take her words, right? I'm going to use her words to describe what she does. And she said, quote, that she is on a concerted quest to achieve a more equitable and just society. For over 20 years, Michellene has been championing new policies and strengthening systems' ability to address social, systemic, structural, and political inequities while generating significant results in healthcare delivery, government, and nonprofit administration. She has worked in so many different sectors. She's currently the CEO of National Medical Fellowships that, quote, fights to dismantle the systemic and structural racism that drives health disparities by offering scholarships and service learning programs to students of color who want to pursue careers in medicine and behavioral health. Now, this conversation is actually not about a specific job description. It's about living your values and making a change, right? Now, there's mention of suicide in this discussion. I want to have a trigger alert. And I want you to be aware of the services that are available. And it's, if you find yourself in crisis, please call 988. I don't know how to say it eloquently, but I just really, truly want people to know that they matter. And that is a resource available to you. Again, it's 988. The next best thing that we are focusing on in this conversation is how we show up for ourselves, our communities, our country, and the world. Let me tell you, once you meet Michellene, you'll never forget her. Get into this meaty conversation. Oh, thank you, Michellene. It's just such a pleasure. I mean, it's been like lovely reading up about you and watching past videos. So I'm just really happy to be in community with you here today.
Same.
And I was thinking about how I wanted to get this started because your career is so rich, right? And the space of like diversity, equity, and inclusion, I feel like has always been a battlefield. Like this is not new where we are right now. But before kind of delving into that, I want to discuss kind of proverbially how you get ready for battle, right? How do you replenish your spirit, revitalize your fortitude, get the energy to do the work? Because so much of the work that you champion is really a matter of life and death when it comes to marginalized communities. So how do you do that? How do you replenish yourself to kind of show up every day for this fight?
Wow. First of all, thank you so much for just the quality of the question and sharing your incredible platform in order to actually have such a discussion. I am delighted and in awe of you, quite frankly,
Thank you.
and the fact that you lend your space to ensuring that other voices are welcomed in. So I will be completely candid. I am a PK. I'm a bishop's daughter. And so I will tell you that my sister was the rebellious one, and I was the one who paid attention and took notes in Sunday school. Um, and my faith is still that important, right? But I also will tell you that in order to make certain that I am replenishing myself, understanding that I cannot give from an empty cup, that I have to be able to give from my overflow, is something that is really, it's become crystal clear to me. And I say that because of the way in which I have lost so many friends who were also on the battlefield at one time and who gave and gave and gave until they had no more to give. And so as a result, I really try to ensure and make certain that I spend the beginning of my day in gratitude and really centering myself and grounding myself. And from that point on, making certain that I am also moving my body, because to me, that's also an aspect of praise and worship.
Oh, I love that. And I listened to something where you were really talking about your friends who had checked all the boxes, right? They had done all the things, they had all the accolades, but they were not well. What impact does that have on you and how you move in this work?
A profound one. It is literally what has caused me to give myself first to God and then and then to me in the morning, rather than giving myself away, which we are completely told to do, instructed to do, complimented upon doing, rewarded for so doing. I have not spoken about this publicly until now, but you create such a brave space for your guests that I will say, I buried my best friend in the galaxy this past June.
Oh, I'm sorry.
At 59 years old, she was the first African-American female to serve as an assignment judge in Monmouth County in the state in which she existed. She got on the plane and I was on the phone with her. She sat down in 1A in first class and said that she would give me a call when she got off the plane when she landed. And unfortunately, when she landed, she collapsed. Wow. So in reference to what does that do for me, it permits me to exercise the power of my boundaries. It permits me, encourages me, and challenges me to ensure that I am literally fighting for myself to have my boundaries, right? That although that boss may call someone, before the working hours of the day, it reminds me that you better not pick that up. Because they're going to see you at 9:00, right? Right. It has, which I have not been good at. my entire career, right? One of the reasons why I've been so incredibly blessed. Why I say all the time that people read the resume and I'm like, listen, that's just really proof positive of praying parents. Please do not get caught up. Please do not get caught up. Please do not imagine that for a moment that that is all because of me. But I have worked very, very hard. And one of those ways has been to, we're always Johnny on the spot, right? We can rise to every level. We can rise to every occasion. The issue is that every occasion is not emergent that requires us to rise.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so having more, calling back my power back into myself, calling my energy that other people have said things like, oh, I just love being in your energy. I've had people get mad at me when they feel like I've taken my energy away from them. And I remember saying to one person, but I need it. I need that energy in order to heal right now. Right. And so having the righteous indignation in order to claim that back for myself. Black girl magic, right, is not just for the world, it's for us.
But I feel like a lot of people don't feel like they have that agency because they don't have the CEO title. They don't have the executive title, right? They're saying, I'm climbing the ladder, right? I can't see the top of it, but I'm hoping to one day. And so this is kind of the cost that I need to pay to give me access to that space. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I would tell them that, beloved, I know that you are on the ladder. I know that you are talented and brilliant and bright. And the truth is that every rung upon which you ascend will be all that much better because you have gotten there. But we need you to be able to actually get there, which means we need you to be alive long enough. We need you to not have to only worry about surviving. We need you to be able to thrive in spaces, right? And so I want to make certain that I say that too. Although I have to be completely candid, right? I've worked with some millennials and some of the younger generations. They don't seem to have that problem.
I'm older millennial, and it's the conversations that I have where people are just kind of like, we came in a different workforce, right? And so the rules of the workforce changed while we were kind of coming of age, right, in the middle of it. And so it's like, what sensibility do we lean to? Because we're in the middle of it. It's one thing if you start honoring your boundaries from the beginning, but when you couldn't, because that's not how the workplace was set up, and then it's hard to undo. It's hard to undo
Yeah,
all of that, you know?
I absolutely agree with you and can totally understand that. Listen, I was a 33-year-old CEO of a $2.4 billion company, right? I remember having, and this is when I was CEO of the New Jersey Lottery. I distinctly recall the fact that my youngest senior staff member was 20 years my senior. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt very much like I've got to be in early and leave late. I need them to understand that I can outwork everybody else in there.
Mm-hmm.
When the truth be told, actually, when I went to my next role, which, as you know, was treasurer, I wanted to make certain that I was modeling wellness for folks.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make certain that people did not believe that they had to surrender their very life breath in order to make that thing work. And I'm going to go ahead and say this too, because truth be told, in my time as deputy state treasurer, something happened in my marriage, right? I remember we were in the midst of a state shutdown. And as a result of that, we literally were in a circumstance where I had to be there overnight so that we could achieve a state budget. It was one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, in so doing, you're away from home a great deal. I wound up losing that marriage, but or getting promoted to the next, whichever, or whatever language you want to utilize. And so I would just want people to make certain that they understand and are mindful about what you're sacrificing. Make certain that it is that which you are willing to so sacrifice. What I now know is that he couldn't go where God had to take me. I can guarantee you that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's interesting that you mentioned that we're on that middle ground, because truth be told, then achieve in the middle. Right. I have not said that I have completely, absolutely, positively accomplished it, to be clear.
Right. No,
I had calls over the weekend to use from someone asking me for money and someone else asking if they could use my house for an event. And I'm like, what is happening? Right. So I haven't mastered it. I haven't mastered it as of yet, but it is a worthy tug of war to be in, right? To save yourself. suicide among women, and Black women in particular, is on a galactic rise right now, right? So I'm saying this because there's someone in your listening audience that I want to make certain that we get to and that we get a chance to save. I want to make certain that there's some sister who understands that it no longer should cost her everything that she has. And for so often, for so long, we have believed the hype that it actually does, that is what it takes for success. And then we get to the pinnacle of success and realize it's very lonely. It can be incredibly isolating, right? It doesn't feel like what it looked like on the vision board, right? And so we want to make certain that we are still left. And when I say we, I mean, we are not what our title says. We are not who we're married to. We are not, right, what town we live in. We are not that. Because when you lose all those things, then what are you? Right? So there has to be something, there has to be a conversation, an inward dialogue in the mirror with yourself that literally talks about, right? So what is success to me? What does that look like? What do I value? Not what does the world value?
Right.
What do I value? What is most valuable to me? What am I willing to sacrifice and what am I not? I changed careers at a time when, quite frankly, my mother's Alzheimer's had accelerated to a degree where I knew I don't have long. So I came home. And I know that not everybody has that choice and that chance. And so I wanted to take it because I actually did have it. Right? I am grateful for the resources. I'm grateful for the ability to have her live in an in-law suite. I'm grateful to have a live-in aide with her at all times, right? I'm grateful to be able to steal away from my home office in order to join her for breakfast, lunch, dinner. And I know everybody else doesn't have that all the time, right? But again, this comes down to what makes the most sense for my spirit. What is going to make certain that when I'm at the end of it all, I am not an empty shell.
That's so important. And I frame this around the desire that so many women in particular have to serve and to be of service to a broader mission, right? And one of the things that you've been able to do so beautifully is that you're often in rooms where people don't share. You don't have the same privilege as them. You don't have the same identity as them, but you're able to craft a story that everybody can see themselves in. So I wanted to understand how you best build consensus. How do you go about building consensus for advocating for these things and also communicating the urgency of the matter? How do you go about doing that?
Thank you. I thank you for the kind comments. I will tell you, I think I look to find, so what is the commonality in folks, right? Where does the humanity kick in, right? Where is that element? I do not know whether or not your listening audience or you have had an opportunity to see Ava DuVernay's new movie, Origin.
I have not yet. It's on my list, so I need to go very soon.
Yeah, take tissues. Full disclosure.
I know that's what everybody says.
I was like, no one warned me. There is a particular scene where, and I will not give it away. I will not give you any spoiler alerts, but there is a particular scene where she looks at a person who could not be more diametrically opposed to who she is as a person, and begins to talk about the loss of a family member, and she connects with that person at their humanity. I believe that we have the ability to do that at large scale and in wide scope, right? And so really what I try to do is exactly that. We have all had a different lived experience. It is what makes us all so wondrously diverse and why it's so important to always have diverse voices in every environment. But if you can connect some commonalities across those divergent lived experiences, what you find is the crux of humanity. And so there are times when I remember one time in particular, I don't know how this happened, but I think it was a tech conference and it was a room full of men and they asked me to come and talk about women's leadership. So I'm not really certain what that was, but that's what the sponsor wanted me there for. So, And as I stood up, when I began to talk to them, I remember asking folks how many of them, were fathers of a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them were brothers of a sister? How many of them were uncles to a niece? How many of them were sons to a mother?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Husbands to a wife. And the reason why I started there was because of the fact that, by the way, this was like 2016, 2017, right? So you remember the environment of the country, which is analogous to where we are right now.
Right.
And so, I talked about wanting the best for their daughters, right? Who, I asked for those who had kids in grammar school or infants. I asked, for those who had teenagers or preteens to raise their hand, and we all, offered them our condolences, right? I asked for those who had a daughter in college, for someone who wanted to be something that was non-traditional, for someone who had a daughter who was majoring in math or science, another one who was, majoring in English or literature, right? I just wanted to be able to find this, and then talked about the opportunity for them to be empowered as young people, as human beings,
Mm-hmm.
right? As young women. And then I brought it up through what it is like for them to have teams of women who also are someone else's daughter, niece, granddaughter, right? Wife. And so it was really interesting that at the end, I ended to a resounding standing ovation. I was speechless. I will tell you that. But I think that there's a real opportunity and the real ability, which quite frankly, we will all need to double down on, to create human connection so that we can actually pierce through the veil of polarization, which right now is becoming more heightened by the moment, right? That there is still the ability to connect to humanity. Another thing that I've often done is when I was growing up, there was my favorite TV show in the whole world was Romper Room. You're much too young to remember this.
I see Monty and I see Robin, I see Amy.
But there was a teacher who looked through what she called her magic mirror, and she saw Becky and Billy and Thomas. She always saw all these different people. She never saw Michellene, Javier, Lourdes, Mercedes, right? She never saw Ramik. She never saw Aisha. She never saw certain individuals of different communities. And so, but when you can hearken people back to a childhood memory, one that they recall, one that they like a great deal, right? It is in that moment that you're able to get them to open up their childhood memory, their childhood heart, right? And what we know is that hatred is taught, right? It is a learned behavior. So if you can welcome people into a space that is safe enough for them to remember back before they had learned the lessons of locking the door when that person walks by, you have the ability. I still believe, I'm a hopeless optimist. I still believe that we have the ability to touch people at the core of not just who they are today, but who they were as children and who their best selves still aspire to be today.
Hey there, if you want to learn how to implement these steps that Michellene has unpacked for us in this conversation, be sure to subscribe to the Next Nuggets newsletter. Just go to the website, thenextbestthingact.com, to sign up. We're going to put a direct link in the show notes. All right, back to the conversation. So when it comes to DE&I more broadly and where we are right now, it's very scary, right? Do you think that the tactics being used in terms of the resistance needs to be different, or should people use different tools right now? Like how do you combat this moment that we're in while hoping to restore the progress that so many fought and died for?
Yeah. So you are brilliant and are asking, of course, all the right questions as a result thereof. What I will tell you is two things. One of the things that we need to do is to make certain that, and it is as scary as you indicate. I want to make certain that I am completely clear about that. Simultaneously, we need to remember that this is not the first time that we've ever been here.
Right.
We need to hearken back to the fact that, no, we've been here before. Right. I remember in 2016, people were like, oh, my goodness, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I'm just like, we're going to do what we've always done. Like, wait a minute, y'all. We had George Wallace, who stood on steps and said segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. Like, we have weathered this before. We've got to remember who we are, to be completely candid, right? We cannot buy into the inferiority that is being sold to us because it was never, ever true, right? It was never, ever true. And so as a result of that, we have to remember and harken back to the playbook that those who came before us have already left us, right? Yes, we have ancient scripture, but we also have ancient script written by James Baldwin and laid out by Fannie Lou Hamer. We have those who have had this fight before. And so we need to return to that in order to say, all right, so A, what did they do? B, what does that look like today? C, right? What would technology add to it? How do we exponentially increase it? Right? Listen, they had a mailman march without Graham. Hello, somebody. Right. They had the march on Washington by whispers in the wind. Right? They had a Montgomery bus boycott by printing out flyers. I'm not trying to be funny, y'all, but we got to stop acting like this is oh so hard. Now, is it true that the outcome is just as dire, meaning it is that much and is that important, and the urgency is now? Absolutely, positively so, because you know what else? We cannot let those who have come before us, who have sacrificed and died, we cannot let their perishing be for naught. Right? We can't let that happen. So we should be utilizing every tool, right? Listen, by background and training, I'm a lawyer. I'm not practicing right now because I'm leading this wonderful organization. But, right, so where's the legal fund that's set up in order to ensure that those who are being attacked already have that? Because one of the tricks of this is we will attack an entity in order to, quite frankly, have them have to spend their dollars and weather them down so that they'll have to shutter their doors. Right? That's a very big aspect of this. I think that what was incredible about the Fearless Fund attack was the fact that so many other entities came behind them and stood, because what they got is if this happens to them, it's going to happen to every single other entity. This Fearless Fund decision is incredibly important for all of us. This has the power to set us back dramatically. Right? So it's important that we know and are aware of what is going on everywhere, every day. Sometimes I get concerned because I have conversations with folks who aren't paying as close attention to it. And I'm like, we got really comfortable.
Yeah.
We got really comfortable. And now is not the time for comfort. Now is the time for action. I love your question. Should we be using multiple tools or different tools right now? Absolutely, yes. We should be utilizing a diversification of tools in every single way. So we should have the legal strategy, the legal fund. We should know which legal firms are taking it on, because as you know, several of them were under threat of suit. And so as a result of that, they've canceled their own diversity practices, much less, right, taking up the helm for anybody else. But then as well, right, how are we controlling the narrative? How are we making certain that this narrative that's out there right now, that this is bad? The fact when I hear, and Jamie Dimon really did something pretty great in really saying, listen, I'm committed to diversity because, like Mark Cuban said, it's just good for business.
I tell you, I'm a full-throated, red-blooded, patriotic, unwoke, capitalist CEO. So, I'm not woke to anything. And when people talk about that, I don't even know what they're talking about half the time. And but like I said before, that does not mean you don't reach out to communities.
But my issue was at the beginning of his comments when he said, I am the least woke person. I'm like, so woke isn't bad. Like, don't buy into this theory that being aware of and sensitized to the plight of another, the experience of another, being respectful of the lived experience of others who have been oppressed at any point in time is a negative thing, right? So what are we doing? Where are all of the PR professionals? Where are the Black media? Where are the brown media? How are we literally making certain that we are turning this around as you are endeavoring to do right now, right? And we should all know exactly who they are. What are their roles? How do we intersect with them? How do we make certain that we are amplifying that voice? So when we talk about what tools should we be utilizing, we need to be utilizing all of this. Who are social media influencers? Are they making certain that this is, an aspect of what they're talking about right now? Are they pushing this out as much as they're doing a Get Ready With Me, right? What else are we doing? How are we educating the masses in real time and real ways? So it is the fact that we must use every tool at our disposal. And then, my friend, I firmly believe that we need to tell our friends who were talking about hashtag ally to pull up, as Brianna said.
Right.
The ones who call and say, I want to pick your brain. I want to spend some time. I want to get your thoughts. Well, I want to hear your voice. How about that? I want to hear your voice. I want to make certain that I hear your voice and help me to dispel this negative, false, made up, fake, fraudulent narrative that says that DEI is bad.
Yeah.
And then you can call me and we can talk about picking somebody's brain.
Period, as they can say. That's so true. So true. I do want to end this conversation because I want to be respectful of your time. My last segment is called ACT UP, ACT. Those are my initials. It's about what we can do now to get us from where we are to where we want to be. But I want to do it, frame it around the political environment and the weariness that people are feeling, right? Because of the pandemic, because of all of these attacks. And we're in a political environment. It's a consequential time. What do you say to folks in terms of, a lot of times on this podcast, I talk about how to change yourself individually, but I think the best life is the one of service, right? Where you can serve other people, where you use your gifts in service to other people. And so what are our individual responsibilities? How do we individually need to show up in this moment for the collective good?
Listen, this is the reason why I listen to your podcast, because wow. So, girl, you're so good. So, literally, I'm sorry, but I really do firmly believe, one, we need to make certain that we are taking good care of ourselves. I mean, yes, it is really important that you are eating right and exercising and getting enough rest. I believe that. However, I also want to make certain that you are also checking in with your own mental health and well-being, right? We need to make certain that we're doing that, and then that we are checking in with our friends, especially the strong ones, right? You likely know, because you mentioned that you listened to a few of my lectures. You most likely know that I've lost at least 2 friends at their own hand, right? And so I say this to say that it's really important that we are checking in one another on an individual basis and keeping that connection, right? Because it's easy in this fast-paced, busy social media world to feel like we've connected with someone when we haven't, right? The second thing is that we need to make certain that, how are you spending your time, right? While you're scrolling, what are you scrolling through, right? Are you just looking at fashion, or are you also looking at, right? So what else is happening? What's going on in Congo? What's going on in other parts of the world? Or are you being focused in on those who, quite frankly, may look like you or may not, have a different lived experience, but quite frankly are undergoing a tough time in this environment that we're in right now? In this political environment, are we fully engaged? How are you pushing back on false narrative, right? Are you making certain that you are getting the truth? Are you? Right? Are you checking those things before you retweet them? Are you? Are you reading the full article? Look, are you reading? Everything's a video right now.
Are you reading? Period. Like, are
Right?
you reading? That's
Are
a
you
barrier
reading?
for so many
For
people.
everything,
Yeah.
right? Right? And then make certain that because, listen, anytime they're trying to outlaw your history, it means that everything you need is in it. So which elements, which foundational articles of our historic rise are you reading as a collective with others? What are you talking about with them? Right? Challenge yourself to make certain that you are in what they don't want you to be reminded of. Right? How are you doing that? And then, please don't get me wrong. I got to be completely candid. Whenever people ask me, so Michellene, what's the one most important thing we can do for our health? I consistently say, vote. Because your health, as a person of color, as a woman, if you're a member of any particular community, LGBTQIA, otherwise enabled, etc., if you're a member of any special community, your health is directly tied to your vote. And so it is imperative that you do so, and that you not get caught up in believing that because someone's name was on a stimulus check that they actually did the work that created the stimulus that gave you the check. Because that's not how it happened. right? And so it is ensuring that you understand these elements. And I know that, listen, I'm a policy wonk, so I love the corny stuff. I love the reading. I read the endnotes to the footnotes. Girl, I get up in there. I want to read the study they reference. I know everybody's not like that. I get it. But you owe it to yourself, to those you love, to those that live in your community, to those who sacrificed, who came before you, to know the truth and to literally find the facts, right? So take that accountability on, walk in that, dress in that, right? And understand that you can savor in that as you literally become your very best self, but that you do owe it.
I love that. Oh, I love that. I'm so glad we had this conversation. Michellene, how can we support you? How can we follow you? We'll put everything in our show notes and our newsletter.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. Listen, I am presently at this fantastic organization, National Medical Fellowships. It is the organization that it's been around for almost 80 years, but it is so needed at exactly right now. So I encourage all of those in your listening audience to please follow us, right? Listen, we're on the gram, we're on Twitter, we're everywhere, and so am I. And so I just hope to be able to connect with them. Go to our website, www.nmfonline.org. Visit us. Join us. Feel free to invest in us if you so choose, and join us on the battlefield, because that is where we are.
That is where you are. And a lot of work, even though people have to tap out for a little bit, come on back. Come on back. The work is not done. It's not done. Michellene, thank you so much for your time, for your insight, for your inspiration, and your candor. It matters. It matters a lot. Thanks for listening to The Next Best Thing with Andrea Cline-Thomas, a Mountain Court Media production. The music was written, recorded, and produced by Gavin Casey, also known as Dark Purple. Now, if you like what you heard, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and write a comment on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to share it with friends. Now, I hope this episode helps you on your journey. See you next time.